motto for Hendrick's Gin is, no other gin tastes like Hendrick's Gin because no other gin is made like Hendrick's Gin. That sentiment could be true about anyone I interview, but it's especially apropos in regards to my guest today, Hendrick's Gin UK brand ambassador. I'm Susan Schwartz, your drinking companion, and this is Lush Life Podcast. Every week we are inspired to live life one cocktail at a time by everyone in this industry. Sasha Filimonov never set out to be in the hospitality industry. In fact, she was on track to having her dream job when the financial crisis changed all that. The journey to Hendrick's Gin UK brand ambassador took many twists and turns until the day two of her passions collided, her love of martinis and of the world of Hendrick's Gin. Today, she takes us down that path. Before we begin, you can find links on how to donate to some of your favorite bars or have cocktails delivered right to your door on the homepage of my website, alushlifemanual.com. Now on to Sasha's story. Let's start where we usually begin. Can you tell me a little about where you grew up and your family and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I was born in New York, and both my parents actually immigrated from the former Soviet Union to Brooklyn with my respective grandmothers, and kind of came over as teenagers. And then, I was first generation American.
What year did they come over?
I don't remember the exact years that they came over, but I want to say early
the decade,
80s.
Early 80s.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was, kind of born to immigrant parents and grew up speaking Russian at home, and a decidedly, first generation American experience in that sense, and, eating Ukrainian food at home. And my mom was very adamant that I read, write, and speak Russian, that would be a valuable skill forever. It's important.
I'm sure it is.
Stay connected to my heritage. And then I went to an all-girls school in New York until I was about 12 years old when we moved over to London. So we came here. And I went.
Was that because of your parents' work, or?
Yes. So my stepdad was working in Moscow at the time, and my mom wasn't super keen on us relocating all the way to Moscow, because obviously that would have been quite a big dramatic change for my life. And
okay.
So London was this happy medium. It was a lot closer, and I had some hesitations, but the idea of going to a co-ed school I was pretty excited about. So it was, I think, a wonderful gift I was given to be able to move over here and meet people from all over the world and, travel around so much. And it was really lovely. So I went to the American school here, thus I never picked up any hint of a British accent. And so I sound like this.
Yes, of course. I'm interested in knowing what was your family, were they drinkers? Do they like any specific, thing in the house that you remember?
I wouldn't say so much. I know that my mom actually used to be a manager of a bar restaurant when I was quite young. It was a place that, you'd serve dinner, and then at a certain hour, I think people were probably dancing on the tables. It was kind of a Soho institution. I know my dad was quite a fan of dark rum. He is now a big fan of gin, which is really nice.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. He's very supportive. But I think I was just always really, really interested in food and flavor. And so many of my childhood memories and so many of my memories are very, very connected to something that I tasted, something that I ate, something that I drank, and was quite obsessive about it and still am to this day. And I think that's probably where those seeds were planted about getting.
Was your mother making Russian or Ukrainian food at home?
My mom worked a lot, so she...
Sorry, that was so sexist. Or your dad. Sorry.
No. My parents split when I was quite young, so there was lots of takeaways with my dad, and then with my mom. I mean, she was working so much, so usually it was the nanny. But, I grew up eating
Hmm.
fettuccine. It's like chicken patties. Plimeni are my favorite, which are sort of like little dumplings, meat-filled dumplings. I had to eat, my grandmothers would make me
So there's a
borscht.
little bit of that heritage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh my God. And I'm a lover of borscht. Yes, I understand. Did you, what were your first experiences of, say, bartending or working in a bar?
So I studied journalism. Did my, not kind of, I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Miami in Florida in print journalism on the magazine track and also did photography. But when I graduated, that was the year that the US economy collapsed. So that was 2009. Thus, I had this amazing job opportunity. I'd been interning at W Magazine, which was my absolute dream job. That's where I wanted to be. I loved interning there so much, and they offered me a part-time role. But unfortunately, because the economy collapsed, Condé Nast went on a hiring freeze, and they really weren't able to take anyone on, which I found immensely disappointing.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure super disappointing.
Yes, but I thought, how can I fill my time? So I started to look for bar jobs, which were really hard to come by with zero experience. Being the studious woman that I am, I applied to get into this bartending course at Columbia University. It was 1 semester long, and I did a bartending course at Columbia.
Oh, no way. So you were in New York City, obviously, with Condé Nast,
yes.
And you stayed
there.
Yeah,
so I was at University of Miami for the first 3 years of my undergrad and completed my degree there by taking classes my last year in New York because I had to go back. And then I was, based in New York and doing internships and trying to get a bar job. But even with
I love that you went really high. Like, I'm going to go to not only a bartending class, but the Ivy League School of Bartending at Columbia.
I know, I'm ridiculous.
So how long was it?
It was just a semester, so probably.
So a couple months.
At least, probably more.
And do you remember things from
Barely.
then that you still use?
Barely.
Oh, no.
No, I wouldn't say. I've learned how to make lots of shooters, American style ones with layering of very sweet ingredients and probably delicious, but not something that is particularly applicable in my role today.
I love that that's what they taught at Columbia. Okay, we're going to teach you the shooters.
Yeah.
Hey, some people, it's a good skill to have.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. So were you always thinking, I'm going to go back to journalism? This is just a short time thing, this bartending thing?
Yeah, I think what I ended up doing was traveling when I really couldn't get a gig. I did a few weeks of travel around Italy and Greece and met some people who had just been traveling around Australia, and they informed me that I could earn about $20 to $21 an hour bartending there, and that's, jobs were available. So off I get my backpack and over to Australia with the intention of bartending my way around the country, as well as trying to do some freelance travel journalism because I was really passionate about that as well. But this was before Wi-Fi was free and readily available everywhere. It was quite slow and expensive, and I was in some pretty far-flung towns in Australia. So finding and getting freelance work was challenging, and bartending was paying well, and I was really enjoying it. So I focused on that and lots of journaling.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of pre-blog days, which is funny to think about, but it wasn't as if you could, just set up a blog in 2009. I mean, I did. I know some people did it, but
I did.
You did.
Yeah. I'd set up a blog. So that was, by then it was 2010, I headed over, and I was there I was traveling for about 2.5 years.
Oh, a long time.
Yeah.
And always bartending while you were traveling?
I had some other odd jobs, door-to-door newspaper subscription sales, cleaning toilets, Worked at some trade shows, but primarily bartending, waitressing, so working in bars and restaurants. Yeah.
But still with an eye to continue your journalism, right?
Yeah, yeah. And once I kind of realized that maybe it's time to wrap up my travels, I came back to London and did my master's degree in journalism.
Was there a specific part of journalism that you wanted to concentrate in? You know, news or lifestyle? I mean, did you want to go back to lifestyle after working at W?
Yeah, I mean, I was really interested in food and drink journalism. So I came back to study to really brush up on my digital journalism skills because I had done print and with a magazine track. Obviously, the world had changed significantly since then, and it still continues, and increasingly digital is so critical. So I then ended up getting a job at The Guardian, which I was there for about 5 years doing part-time work, night shifts on weekends. And I wrote a letter to Imbibe magazine because I was really passionate about drinks. And I obviously had a bit of journalism experience as well. And there weren't that many titles that I felt I could really merge my two interests, passions, and sets of skills together. And I just wrote them a very earnest letter saying that these are my skills. I would really love to come and do some work experience for you. And so I did. And that resulted in me getting a role there. And I was there for about 3.5 years.
And what kind of things were you writing while you were there?
So first, when I was on the Imbibe team, I was working on, drinks news pieces, et cetera, et cetera. And then I launched a website for them called Best Bars, which was more consumer facing. And that meant that I was going to bars every night and writing them up. And it was all about the best bars across the UK. And yeah.
And did it fun? You loved it? You wanted to continue doing it?
Yeah, definitely. I was very, and still am very passionate about the world of drinks. And it was this amazing way to become more deeply connected to the drinks community here and learn more about the craft and hero all of the amazing hospitality individuals that I had the pleasure of, having the graces of their hospitality. And yeah, I just became more and more passionate about it. And then once I moved from Best Bars back onto Imbibe to work on the show and the magazine once again, I started working more closely with brands and organizing events for them and organizing Imbibe Live, which is a really big trade show. And I realized how much I loved that side of things. And it was such a wonderful expression of creativity. And I love organizing things as well. So it's this great juxtaposition of the drinks industry, output of creative energy, and organizational skills. And I realized that that's something that I really adore.
And for someone who may be in your position, a writer thinking, oh, I'd love to be a brand ambassador, it would be great to hear the steps that you took, once you realized that that's what you love doing, of how you managed to make it happen in such a huge role that you have now.
I guess it was a very long process. If you think about when I first decided I had an interest in drinks, which would have been, many, many years ago. I was very passionate about martinis, making them at home, to, taking a course in New York, to then bartending for a few years in Australia, then working at a drinks magazine for 3.5 years. And then I worked for an American whiskey brand for 1.5 years. And then I stepped into this role about 2 years ago. So it was a lot of years of learning different sides of the drinks industries. And I think that was a wonderful asset to be able to understand all the different pieces of the puzzle that make up this beautiful little drinks world in which we live. But I would say that one of the key things was I was so in love with the Hendrick's brand before I even started. I remember going to the Departure Lounge at Tales of the Cocktail in New Orleans, and it was a Hendrick's event. And I was completely blown away. I was totally enamored I thought, what an incredible, strange little world they've created. And it was such a beautiful repayment of hospitality back to bartenders that I really enjoyed. And I love the fact that every touch point you could feel and experience the world of Hendrix, that it was so much more than just the delicious drinks, that it was this, deeply woven story with lots of layers. So when I was, it was happenstance
Wait.
I bumped into.
Wait, hold on. Before we get to the Hendrick story, we skipped over
Yeah.
just a teeny bit of when you said that you moved from Imbibe to a whiskey brand. So
yeah.
That step from moving from a journalism career, I guess, or job, working at a publication, to then stepping into the role that you thought that you wanted to have as a brand ambassador. What was that like? What were the changes or the shifts in what you were doing?
A lot of changes. Well, I had moved from the editorial team at Imbibe to the commercial team. So I was working more directly with brands for the first time. Rather than just attending and covering their events, I was curating events and cocktail competitions with the brands and coming up with creative solutions to engage with, the fabulous bartenders. And that's where the spark really struck. And I realized I would actually enjoy the brand side of things. And I really wanted to think about what brands I really loved. So it wasn't about, I want to be a brand ambassador. I very much wanted to work somewhere where I really believed in the brand and I really loved it, because I have to do things that I really believe in. And I hope that comes across through my work, that it always comes from a place of truth, of passion, of honesty. And so when I think, after spending years working with the trade, and so many of my close friends, almost all of them work in the drinks industry, and my life is so deeply, deeply entrenched in this industry, you hear about roles popping up. And when I heard about one that really seemed to be a great fit for what I wanted as my next step, I threw my hat in the ring and was lucky enough to get it. So that was
so you were working you were working with the brown spirits, which is a whole different story than the white spirits. For you to transition to the role that you have now, was it that you wanted to work with a different spirit, or this was like, oh my God, it's Hendrix, I see that this is available, I gotta go for this?
It was, oh my God, this is Hendrix. I couldn't, and I really didn't think of myself going into an ambassador position necessarily, even though I so deeply believe in advocacy and how important it is, and what a strange yet beautiful job it is, and these amazing lifelong memories that ambassadors build for people, and the beautiful magic that they weave that connects you so emotionally to a brand, which is why it's such a gift to be in this position. But the previous role was not an ambassador role, mind you. It was working with the on-trade as a kind of on-trade marketing. So again, I thought would perhaps be a little bit more entrenched in advocacy than in reality it was. But the brands were still, phenomenal, and I have the utmost respect. But I think that I just had this deep excitement about the opportunity to potentially work for Hendrix, because I was so enamored with the world and the brand. And then as soon as I joined, I realized it was even more incredible, deeper, more honest in its storytelling, and very purposeful in everything that it does. And I just love all the strangeness.
Well, I rudely interrupted you and made you go back a little, but you were saying that you were at the Tails departure lounge
Yes.
and you were just blown away. Tell me what blew you away again about it.
So in New Orleans, I went to the departure lounge, and it was just this perfect experience. I was really, really shocked and amazed that every little detail, every little touch point had been considered. And I loved the fact that it was a journey from start to finish, from the time you picked up your ticket to when you arrived, you were ushered upstairs. You had so many different people that were guiding you through this experience. And then you come out feeling changed in this beautiful way and left with a really incredible impression. And it didn't feel like they just slapped something on and it looked pretty, but there was a reason behind every single thing. And they had, a little gift box wall. They had back massages. They had people waving, palm leaves at you. They had a multisensorial experience. I don't know how to explain it, but it's a meditative moment. Yeah, it was more about kind of being a bit introverted for a moment and being very present and almost taking you into this incredible mindset. And it was just amazing.
So you saw this or this job listed, or they, how did you find out about it?
Through a conversation. I was working from the Edition Hotel, and I bumped into the global ambassador at the time and was having conversations. And he said that, he's in the process of looking for a Hendrix ambassador. And I kind of raised my hand and said, I'd be interested. And he seemed pretty shocked. He didn't think that I'd want to throw my hat in the ring. But I explained just how much I loved the brand. And it's not that I was actively looking for anything. It was just the opportunity was too exciting to miss up.
And once you got it, what was the process to learn everything about Hendrix to bring you up to speed?
I think I was very lucky that on my second week in the role, we have a Hendrix ambassador workshop, which takes all of the Hendrix ambassadors from all over the world. We meet somewhere and we have a week together where we do, hackathons. We did a hypnotism workshop. We do these amazing suppers. We did a poetry club. We did a turtleneck club. It was just an incredible onslaught of content. And meeting all of the ambassadors, some of whom have been in the role for 8 years and know the DNA so intensely, I was just trying to be a sponge and understand the DNA of the brand as quickly as I could. And we were also very, very lucky that our master distiller, Leslie Gracie, came along as well and took us through a deconstructed tasting and talked through the nuances of the liquid. So I was very quickly able to hit the ground running because I understood what it meant to be a Hendrix ambassador. I had a great mentor who really championed my creative visions, my ideas, and what I wanted to do within the context of the Hendrix world. And it's very much a constantly evolving world. And the beautiful thing about being a Hendrix ambassador is that you can really make the role your own. So that's such a big part of being a Hendrix ambassador, rather than just onboarding what the previous person did. It's about making it true to who you are. So
yes, it's interesting quickly that you say that, because every brand is iconic, but Hendrix is, such an iconic brand. I mean, there's no way that you can miss it on the shelf. From the bottle to the liquid, it really changed everything about what a gin and tonic is, or how you even drink a gin and tonic. There's so much history, even though it's so modern history, that I'm, thrilled to hear that, it is constantly evolving, and that, you do have leeway to put your stamp on it. And what do you feel in your role that you've been able to achieve since you've gotten there? I know it's a big question.
I actually, I feel like my head spins sometimes when I write down all the things that I've been lucky enough to do since I started the role, and that I've been given the authority and the creative authority to make my visions a reality. And I think that's why, again, I'm so happy in my role. But I had this little concept called Tini Martini, which in my interview, I did a presentation on the journey of the martini and made everyone a little teeny martini, because I collect miniature glassware and I've just been obsessed with miniature glassware for years. And then came up with this concept to make it a thing that lives and breathes in many various guises, from, more than just the glass, but big experiential events, smaller bar takeovers, and just heroing this drink that actually was the one that brought me into the world of drinks. Has such an iconic cocktail, has so much legend and lore and examples in literature and in film. And to see that come to life, and I got to do it in a way that was it was so my vision. It was so exciting to be able to have all these crazy ideas and then make it happen, and seeing the delight on people's faces, and seeing bartenders as well as consumers as well as journalists all get it and connect to it, felt like the biggest it's the most exciting thing ever. I just couldn't believe that everyone got it and liked it, and it gave so much joy. I hysterically cried the last night that we wrapped it on, when we launched it, London Cocktail Week in 2018. It was the same week we opened the doors to the new Gin Palace as well. So it was a big week. But to see it constantly evolving, and to see more and more bars that I thought, God, will they ever? They would never say yes to doing this. They would, oh no, and just everyone has been so warm and accepting of this little strange idea. And I feel like it's only just starting. There's still loads more I would like to do with it. So that's been an amazing thing to see grow and evolve.
And once we're out of this C word, as I call it, are you, I'm sure you're homeworking and planning on the next thing to happen within Hendrix. Are you allowed to chat about that at all? No,
probably not. It's so rapidly evolving, to be honest. I mean, we had, I write very elaborate, ambitious plans for every year, which often to the detriment of my free time and mental health, because I am very ambitious and I have a huge amount of energy. So I always know I can get things done, but I'm a more is more person. So I have a billion ideas, and I just want to hit the ground running and get going. But it's hard to say what I'll be able to do out of the back of this, because who knows what that's going to look like, because I love creating amazing, magical experiences and, taking people on these strange, peculiar journeys. And
well,
I have to see how I do
exactly.
that.
I like that answer, because it means people have to check back with you and have to keep checking what Hendrix is. So
yeah,
I guess until the next time we meet, all right, they'll have to come back.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you.
There'll be lots of stuff.
Good. I can't wait. Let me tell you, I can't wait. So I really appreciate you being on the show, and thank you so much.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, I couldn't leave Sasha without asking her advice for the home bartender and where she would love to be drinking right now.
So my top suggestion, and I think it's a really simple one, is to put a bottle of gin in the freezer as well as 2 glasses, because that means that when you need an emergency martini, you're about 30 seconds away from one. It's absolutely brilliant. You can pre-dilute it a little bit if you want, not too much, otherwise it'll freeze, and put, a little vermouth in there. Or just freeze the gin, and if you like your martinis very, very naked, like I do, you could do a little vermouth rinse on your frozen glass or a little vermouth spritz, and then away you go. Now I drink my martinis out of a Tini martini glass, so it's a pretty responsible measure, I'd say.
If you could drink anywhere right now, where would you drink?
Well, I've been working on a little Hendrick's journey in the past 2 days, and it's got me thinking about our gin palace. And I was actually doing a little pretend cocktail tutorial from the Hendrick's bar in the gin palace. And I just miss the magic and the mayhem that we create in that strange, beautiful place in Girvan. And it's very much our version of Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. It's so clearly a place that has been built out of the heart and the passion of our master distiller, Leslie Gracie, and of our ambassadors, because every little touch point in there has a purpose and has a reason, and it's all really an homage to Leslie. But there's something about bringing bartenders to that bar and running a little bit of a muck and seeing the spark in everyone's eyes as they fully are immersed in the strangeness of my world and my brain. It's something that I miss, bringing that magic to life with people in real life.
We will get there soon enough. I know it.
Yes.
Thanks so much to Sasha for being on the show. I can't wait to get up to see the Gin Palace for myself. I'm now taking my bottle of Hendrick's gin out of the freezer, so I'm ready for my Tini Martini, which of course had to be my cocktail of the week. Sasha's love of miniature glassware was the inspiration that led her to create the Tini Martini. My love of martinis was the inspiration for me making my cocktail of the week, the Tini Martini. You'll need only Hendrick's gin and vermouth, plus a small slice of cucumber. Begin by spraying a chilled Tini Martini glass with 4 ml of dry vermouth, or pour in 4 ml and give it a rinse. Then add 30 ml of Hendrick's gin to a mixing glass with ice. Stir it down until chilled. Then strain into your Tini Martini glass and garnish with the slice of cucumber. You'll find this recipe, the recipe for making a bigger Hendrick's Martini, more martini recipes, plus all the cocktails of the week at alushlifemanual.com, as well as links to all the ingredients. Although I'm on a diet, that hasn't stopped me from trying recipes out of the tons of cookbooks that have been gathering dust pre-COVID. Right now, my favorite recipe is the Easy Grilled Chicken from Burma, Rivers of Flavor by Naomi Dogood. It's a mix of garlic, turmeric, ginger, cayenne, and fish sauce. And of course, it goes really nicely with the Hendrick's Gin Basil Smash. If you live for Lush Life, make sure you're giving back to the bars you love by donating or taking part in cocktail delivery where you live. Theme music for Lush Life is by Steven Shapiro and used with permission. And Lush Life is always and will be forever produced by Evo Terra and Simpler Media Productions. Which leaves me to say the wise words of Oscar Wilde: all things in moderation, including moderation. And always drink responsibly and wash your hands and stay safe. Next week, we discover what position could possibly drag our guests back to the UK after years of working in the Antipodes. Until that time, bottoms up.